Hey guys, I'm Lex and welcome to Words of This Life.
I'm gonna run, and even if I fall, I know I'll be safe in my skin. Hey, hey, hey.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into today's topic, which is addiction. I've had a few people ask me if I could talk more specifically about addiction, about what it looked like for me, and then how I was able to overcome addiction. I believe that I became an addict very shortly after I began using drugs. And I think the reason for that is that I had so much self-hatred, so much self-loathing, so much anxiety, so much paranoia, so much depression that drugs became an escape, a very fast and easy escape for me to get away from the person myself that I hated so much. It was just really a matter of weeks before it became this thing that just kind of consumed my life. So from 14 to 18, my kind of driving force for my life was how to get drugs, how to get high, how to stay high. That really was kind of behind all of my decision making. So if something got in the way of that, I would run the opposite direction. I had a curfew and didn't want to come home by curfew, so I would stay out for 2 days and come home throwing up all over the place. I was using drugs before school, during school, after school, on the weekends, with my friends, without friends, by myself in my room, and eventually school was too much to handle with that, so I dropped out of school. I was in and out of rehab facilities. I was brought home by the cops a number of times. I was brought to the hospital for overdosing. It was just kind of chaos. I ended up leaving home at 16, and then from 16 to 18, I got pregnant 3 different times by 3 different people, and I chose to abort each of those times because, again, that driving force of my life was I want to be able to escape. I don't want to be sober, and if I am pregnant, and if I had a baby, then I wouldn't be able to do those things. And so I chose to abort 3 times because drugs were my priority. Escaping was my priority. So at 18, I got my first apartment with my mom's help. It was my own place. I had a good job. I had a boyfriend at the time. And just within months of living there in that place and things starting to go kind of well, I sabotaged everything. I left my job, I went and started dancing and entered into the very dark world of the sex industry. And let me just say that it was never this glorified thing that you see on TV. And I'm sure that there are people out there living that way where they are not addicts and they're just making a bunch of money and they have sugar daddies and they're paying for houses and cars and clothes and maybe they even feel like they're enjoying themselves. That was not the story for me. It went downhill very, very quickly. It was, what can I do to get money for my next high, or what can I do just to get high? Sometimes it was, what can I do just for a couple of Xanax? What can I do for just a couple of this or a hit of that? It was this cycle of me hating myself, hating my life, getting high, hating myself more, getting high to escape from how much I hated myself. It was a very vicious, dark, long cycle. So also at 18, just a number of months after I started dancing and left my other job, I was arrested for trafficking charges. So that's a whole other story. You could hear more about that in my life story testimony video if you want to. I'll put the link for that in the description. I'm just trying to make this brief and vague for the sake of time. So I was arrested and I was put on probation. Somehow I did not end up in jail or prison at this time. They put me on probation for 4 years, drug offender probation. Well, wouldn't you know that even though I was on drug offender probation, I continued to do the things that I was doing. And because of that, 9 months into my probation, I violated that probation. I ended up in prison. And this is where things sort of started to turn and where I can look back at my life and go, all right, this was the first thing that kind of set me in a different direction. And that would be people, places, and things, or rather being ripped away from people, places, and things. So I had been doing the same things with the same people in the same places for so long that it was just a comfortable, warm blanket to me, even though it was chaos and destruction, and it brought with it just all sorts of terrible, destructive things that I was doing to myself and my relationships and my family and my friends. And it was just a nightmare. It was hell on earth. I really mean that when I say that I feel like I was living in hell on earth when I was in the height of my addiction. And so going to prison and being taken away from those things, while that was traumatic in a sense, it was also kind of the first step of like, okay, now you have no choice but to get sober, and you have to start facing the things that have happened to you, the things that you've done, the chaos that's been consuming your life for this many years now. And so that kind of leads into the second thing, was I had to open up about the things that I'd experienced. So I was in a drug program called Modality in prison, and I had a counselor that I would talk with one-on-one, but every week we would have these group therapy sessions where we would have to write about something that had happened to us or something that we had done. Basically, we were taking like a fine-tooth comb and going through our life of addiction and seeing how it affected us and the people around us. And oh my goodness, it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming to have to process through the things that had happened to me and the things that I had done because of my addiction and because of that lifestyle that I was living. It was very, very heavy, and it was very, very hard. But looking back, I can see that being able to get some of that stuff out and process through it was really, really helpful. And I believe that it was a key part in me being able to heal from addiction. I had a counselor that I could talk to that understood addiction. That is really, really important, because most of the people that I was surrounded by that were not addicts, I think probably had the mindset of, if you just start making better decisions and pick yourself up by your bootstraps, then your life is going to change and you'll be better. And that just did not work for me. I had been to rehab. I had had a counselor. I had been on psychiatric medication. There were all sorts of things that I had tried to do, and in my own strength, none of that was working. And so having a person that I could talk to that understood addiction in a very clinical sense, understood what was happening in my mind and why it was so hard for me to break free from addiction, was really, really helpful. And then the third thing, and this is the most important thing, and frankly, it's impossible for me to tell my story without this detail, and that detail is Jesus. So I know that Jesus is not everybody's cup of tea. He wasn't mine either. But like I said, it's not possible to tell the story of how I got from where I was then to where I am today without saying that God intervened in my life. And if he had not, then, and I believe wholeheartedly that I would not be here telling you this today. I would not be able to share this story of overcoming addiction with you, because I would probably be dead. I had full intentions before my relationship with Jesus began of going back out into the world after prison, after 3 years in prison, and doing everything the same way that I did before. And so I'm thankful for the intervention of God, and I believe with everything in me that I could not have pulled myself out of the pit that I was in. Like I said before, the hell on earth that I was living in. So the beautiful thing about all of that is that I did not clean myself up first. I was not pursuing God. I did not wake up one day and go, I just think I want to change my life and become a Christian and want to have this accountability of some supreme being. Those weren't thoughts in my mind. The thoughts in my mind were, how can I live my life without anybody telling me what to do, without having to change anything? How can I continue to pursue these things that make me feel good? How can I do that? And if God was going to get in the way of that, then no, I was going to turn the other way like I had for so many years. I ran screaming for the hills every time that God was brought up. So I think it's important to note that I was not pursuing God, and I did not clean myself up first. It was a very miraculous act of him reaching down into the pit that I was dwelling in and saying, I want to call you out of this. And as I felt him doing that, I was able to surrender, and I was finally able to go, okay, this thing that has been hovering over me for so many years is way too big for me. It's way too much for me to handle on my own. It's way too much for me to handle with the help of other human people, because we had tried rehab, medicine, counseling. We had tried all of those things to no avail. I was too far gone, and it really took a miraculous act of God to get me out of where I was. All of those things, people, places, and things changing, finding someone to talk to and being transparent and vulnerable and opening up about things, and then surrendering to God. Those are not just things that happened one time to me in prison. Those are things that I have continued to have to live out. And as I look back over the last 10 years since I became a Christian and then got out of prison, those three things have been patterns in my life. Having to be cautious and wise about what I was doing, who I was with, the places that I was at, having to use wisdom in those things to help protect me and guard me from things that could really be serious temptations. For example, when I got out of prison, I went to a women's home, and that was like the ultimate changing of people and places and things. And I think if I had gone back to where I had come from, to my hometown, after getting out of prison, I probably would have pretty quickly gone back to those same things because it was right there. And the pull, I think, would have been so strong that it would have been really hard to resist. And I still struggled. There were days, even though I had changed people and places and things, there were days in that women's home that I would throw up my hands and say, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go get high. I want to go do drugs. I want to go back to what is comfortable. And they would say, if you want to go, go. And I never did. And guys, that is the grace of God. But it's also because I was in a different place. I can pretty much guarantee that if I had been a street away from where I used to live or where I used to get high, I would have meandered over there one day and gone straight back to how I was before. So changing people and places and things, that was a great thing for me when I got out of prison. And having someone to talk to. Again, I had these caring women, people that were willing to talk with me and process through difficult things with me. Now, I probably needed a lot more counseling than I got at that time. And looking back, I can see that pretty clearly, but I was still covered in a way that I would not have been had I gone back to the places that I came from, or had I just kept the darkness that was creeping around inside of me inside. There is so much freedom when we open up and when we get the things that we are hiding into the light, because when something is in darkness inside of us and we're just holding on to it, it kind of just eats away at us, whether it's addiction or depression or anything else that we're struggling with. When we're able to get that out with another human being to be able to help us and know those struggles, to be known and loved still, there's a lot of healing in that. And so that was something else that followed me. It wasn't just a one-time thing. I kept trying to find people to talk to, and I still do. I have PTSD. I have PMDD. I have highs and lows in my life that I absolutely have to have support for. I have to have people to talk to that I know that I can trust and who understand and who aren't going to be judging me. And then again, the third thing and the most important thing for my story has just been surrender. It's been going, okay, I am broken. Because of sin in this world, I am broken. I am not all that I feel like I'm cracked up to be sometimes. I cannot do this alone. I do not have the emotional or physical or spiritual strength to free myself from the things that I struggle with. And so being able to surrender those things that I struggle with day after day and sometimes moment after moment is an anchor for me, and being able to go, I'm not in this alone. I'm recognizing and acknowledging that I'm not in this alone, that I need wisdom, that I need community, I need other people, and I need God. It's been those things that truly have kept me and brought me from where I was so many years ago to where I am today. And it's not that I haven't had ups and downs. It's not that I don't still have struggles, but when God intervened in my life, my trajectory was set in a completely different direction, and I'm so thankful for that. So if you have felt that maybe God is real and maybe he can help you, or he can help the person that you love that is struggling with addiction or something else, my best advice would be to run with that. And even if it takes a long time, and even if the answers don't come in the way that we would like them to, or as soon as we want them to, he does respond, because he made us, he loves us, and he desires that we live beautiful lives. Not lives that are free from any sort of pain or struggle or suffering, because unfortunately we live in a broken world and that's just not how life is. But he does desire for our hearts that can be so heavy and so burdened down to be free. So that is it for today. Again, I know addiction is a heavy topic, but I hope that something that you've heard today has been an encouragement to you. If you have any questions or comments, or you need prayer even, let me know. You can comment in the comment section, you can shoot me an email, you can find me on Instagram, whatever would be better for you. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back and for listening today. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping by, and I hope to see all of you again soon. Bye, guys.